Good morning. So, our readings today are the readings that we have in this year of the lectionary for the very last Sunday after the Epiphany. Now, it's less important that it's the last Sunday after the Epiphany, and more important that it is the Sunday before Lent. And Lent begins, as many of you know, with Ash Wednesday. And there will be a worship video on Ash Wednesday. You will not be given ashes by me on Ash Wednesday, but, we can pray about it. And there will be a sermon. But it's important that it's the Sunday before Lent, because Lent is the season that runs up to the death and subsequent resurrection of Jesus. And so in the readings, we hear the stories that are running up to the death and subsequent resurrection of Jesus. And in this one, it's from the Gospel of Mark, which, again, you probably heard me say this before, but I like to repeat things, that the Gospel of Mark is the shortest of our 4 canonical Gospels. The Gospel of Thomas is not a canonical Gospel, though it's got a lot of good stuff in there. But Mark is the shortest of the 4 Gospels. It's the one with the fewest amount of detail, the least amount of detail, and it's the one where everything happens immediately. And it's the one where we don't get to see Jesus pray a whole lot, as we discussed in the sermon last week. And yet, we have this story that does appear in other Gospels as well. Slightly altered, but same story. And the story, has been named by Christians and thoughtful people after the fact. It has been named the Transfiguration because a small group of Jesus' students got to see Jesus in a whole new light, literally. He was transfigured. And a kind of theological way to think about this is that, and you could think of it also as a spiritual way to think about this, is that what they saw in Jesus in that beautiful moment, it was also a terrifying moment, was who he really was. The closest that human eyes can behold in this realm of crazy brokenness, in these bodies that don't always cooperate. Oh, wait, they rarely cooperate. They saw the holiness and the purity and the godliness of Jesus. And in their minds, that involved a lot of light. Everything was bright and shiny. It makes me think of Christmas cards and glitter. But anyway, it involved a lot of light. And in fact, especially in the Gospel of John, different gospel from this one, but it's still gospel, there's lots and lots of images of light in darkness. And that ends up playing out through all the Christian faith. Images of light. Light in the darkness. But that's not the only thing that was going on at the top of that particular mountain. And by mountain, you can't think Everest. You got to think you can't even think the Rockies or the Appalachians. You got to think really big hill. Barren, desert-like, but not what we might think of as a mountain. No. It's not the Himalayas, friends. But it's it's better to think of mountaintop experiences than hilltop experiences. So on the top of this mountain, other things are also happening. And Peter, John, and James see 2 figures with Jesus, and they know, so the story goes, exactly who they are. And they are ancient biblical figures. And they're figures that would have held great meaning for Peter, James, and John. Elijah and Moses. Moses and Elijah. And what those two figures meant to those Jewish men was the very high point of two historical figures who were close to God. Two historical figures who had seen God. Moses had seen God face to face. Moses knew the mind of God, knew what God wanted us to do. Moses took down the 10 Commandments. Moses gave us the law. Whose law? God's law. And Elijah was the foremost prophet. What's a prophet? A prophet is the mouthpiece of God. And so you've got the mind of God and the voice of God standing there with Jesus. And what Jesus has revealed to us through his ministry and through his work in the world and through the teachings that we have been left is that he knows the heart of God. And so up there standing on the mountain is someone who knows the mind of God, someone who knows the voice of God, and someone who knows the heart of God. And before Jesus, there was no one who knew the heart of God. There was just the mind of God. There was just the voice of God. And now we know the heart of God. And humorously, because if you read between the lines, there's great humor in this story. You can read it in a stuffy way, and perhaps I did. But you can also read between the lines and see the hilarious bit when Peter has his terrified reaction. So Peter, and James and John, but Peter is the one who speaks and puts his foot in his mouth, sees this amazing thing. I mean, they're following Jesus. They know he's their teacher. He's said some strange things, and he's said some understandable things, and he's said some really difficult things. And it's easy to discount the strange things, and it's easy to remember the difficult things, and it's easy to reinterpret many things. But he probably didn't realize who he really was, or he would not have been so astounded when a piece of that was revealed to him. But as the story goes, Peter, James, and John knew instantly that it was Moses standing there with Jesus, that it was Elijah standing there with Jesus. And their response was, essentially, "Teacher, it's good you brought some strong backs with you, because we'll build an altar to this moment. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." And he was terrified, and he didn't really know what to say. And in that moment, the most he could imagine of himself was that he could be a hired laborer. He could be a friend with a strong back. He didn't realize the gift that was being given wasn't so that he could just remain a strong back. It was so that he could know what was in store for him eventually. And the point of the exercise wasn't so that you could take a photograph of it, or take a video and let it go viral, or build little shrines on the mountainside to a beautiful moment that happened once long ago. The moment, the point of the moment, is so that you can fully experience it and then take it home with you. not the memory of it, but to let yourself be changed by the moment and to take the change home with you. It's like when you go on vacation. Well, when we used to go on vacations, back then before the pandemic. And there's a beauty in keeping a journal or taking some pictures so that you can have something to remind you of those beautiful moments. But there is an extreme state of that. And I've seen it with people, and I have experienced it myself and realized the error of my ways. When you never come out from behind the camera, when you never come out from behind, well, in the old days, the video recorder, the camcorder, or these days, when you don't get the whole experience, you just see it within the frame of your camera, within the frame of your phone. When that narrow piece that never quite captures the fullness and the majesty and the glory and the amazingness of the moment, when that's the only thing you experience to begin with. And I look at my photos from old vacations, back when we could vacation places, and it does spark the memory of that moment, of that hike, of that dinner, of that time on the beach. But the pictures don't do nearly as much for other people as they do for me, because the pictures don't convey the whole of the experience. And what the pictures do for me is remind me of the experience that I had, which was always far more than the small pictures or even the bits of video. The whole experience, the whole experience of bungee jumping is complete and vast and molecular. And the video of watching someone bungee jump, it lacks something. The person is very tiny. The cord is very long. The ravine doesn't seem that impressive, as if it might if you were standing on a plank looking down into it with a cord wrapped around your legs. The point isn't the picture or the video. The point is to remember what happened and how we were changed by it. And so we have this story of the Transfiguration, of something that happened. And I don't think it happened for Jesus' benefit. Maybe it did. Maybe he needed to have a conversation with Moses and Elijah before he died and was risen. But it's possible that he did it for Peter, James, and John, to teach them that death was not the end. To teach them that these bodies are not who we really are. To teach them that they are more than they think they are. Did they understand right away? Clearly no. No, not if that was the point of the teaching. Did they get it eventually? Maybe. Maybe. Amen.